All right. Got everything all set. We got everything all ready. And in about 2 minutes, we are going to skip right into the podcast. So if you're tuning in on the replay, make sure you are skipping about 2 minutes ahead on the stream so that you can get right into the show. But in the meantime, those of you who are here live, those of you who are tuning in as we speak, make sure to drop me a comment and let me know again where you're at right now in your career, if you have any competitions coming up, and what your biggest struggles are right now as an athlete. And these are all things that we can speak to more on future episodes of the show. My goal with this show is to help you. My goal with this show is to help athletes. And the best way that I can do that is if I know exactly who's out there, I know exactly what you're struggling with, and I know exactly what you need to help take yourself to the next level. So, athletes out there, make sure to let me know where you're at, what you're struggling with, and what your next competition, when your next competitions, are coming up. Quick reminder before we get into the show today, the goal of this podcast is to reach athletes. The goal is to help you with those little tips and tricks outside of just training and the sport itself that are going to help you bring yourself to the next level. So, as you tune in, make sure that you're tagging somebody in the comments. Make sure that you're tagging somebody on the stream to make sure that they are getting this same message as well. Because the more people we reach, the more people we speak to, the more people are going to get that message that they need in order to reach the next levels in their sport. So we're going to get into the show now in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the show designed to help athletes gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. And today, we're going to be talking about the hardest worker in the room. We're going to be talking about this mentality that athletes everywhere and coaches everywhere seem to have, that in order to succeed, you need to be the hardest worker in the room. Now, there's a lot of good and a lot of bad behind this statement. And so today we're going to get into both. There are a lot of reasons why I like it. There are a lot of reasons why I don't. So today we're going to get into both sides of that statement, what it actually means, and in turn, how you can maximize that statement to best benefit your career. So the hardest worker in the room, where does this come from? I mean, it's pretty simple. The idea is that if you're going to succeed, then all you need to do is outwork everyone. All you need to do is make sure that you're putting in more hours, you're pushing yourself harder, you're pushing the limits, you're finding new levels, which to an extent I agree with. I've spoken about this expression a lot on this show, and I've spoken about this expression a lot in my content on Instagram, TikTok, everywhere else that you can find me. And to an extent, I do agree. If you are training to reach new levels in a sport, you are training to improve in a sport, you need to be working really hard at it. There's no way around that. So why I like the expression is that right away, taking that mentality towards your training is going to help you understand work ethic. It's going to help you understand the work ethic you need in order to succeed at the high levels that you're hoping to succeed at. However, as you start to understand work ethic, as you start to understand what it takes to succeed as an athlete, as you start to understand these new levels that you're pushing for, there are a lot of places where this expression goes wrong. So in the beginning, focusing on that hard work, focusing on pushing your limits, focusing on finding new levels of yourself makes a lot of sense. We want to see how far you can go. We want to see how hard you can push. But let's get into why I don't like this expression. Let's get into why you should not, as an athlete, be striving to just be the hardest worker in the room. And I know as a lot of people hear that, whether you're here live right now or whether you're listening to this on the replay, I know as a lot of people hear that, they're immediately going to get their guard up. What, is he telling us not to work hard? Is he telling us hard work isn't important? Stop. If that's you right now, stop. I'm not sitting here telling you that hard work isn't important. I'm not sitting here telling you that you can succeed without working hard, because you can't. You need to work hard to succeed. I'm just going to start the rest of this show off by saying that you need to work hard to succeed. But The reason I don't like that mentality of trying to be the hardest worker in the room is that people take it far too literally. People think all I have to do to succeed is work harder. All I have to do to reach the next level is work harder. And when I say that they take it too literally, what I mean is that they put little to no thought or little to no effort into the quality of the work, and they just try to push their limits. I speak to athletes all the time who do crazy shit like go for 3-hour runs once or twice a week because it's pushing their limit and they need to show that they work harder than everybody. But how is it actually translating to helping them in the sport? And that's the question that they're not asking. How is running for 3 hours translating to helping you in your sport? Because it's all well and good to work hard. It's all well and good to, do all this crazy shit that's showing everybody how tough you are and how hard you work. But if it's not actually benefiting you for the goals you have, why are you doing it? I'm going to ask that again. If the work you're doing isn't actually benefiting you for the goals you have, why are you doing it? And so the reason that this is an important question to ask is because, again, the goal for any athletes that are listening to this, the goal is success in the sport. The goal is to reach new levels in the sport. If you followed me for any period of time, you know that my goal with this show is to teach you what you need to do to reach new levels in your sport, to teach you what you need to do to level up your game, level up your skill set, level up your training, and build your dream career in your sport. Now, as you start to understand the work ethic that this is going to take, as you start to understand the drive, the passion, the energy that it's going to take to reach these new levels in your sport, where this expression or where this mentality of being the hardest worker in the room goes wrong is how people take it literally. And this is what pushes people into the all gas, no brakes mentality, or pushes people into the no days off mentality, or the sleep is for the weak mentality. And the reason this is troubling, and the reason that you do not want to be, the reason that you do not want to fall into this trap, that you do not want to fall into this mentality, is that if you're an athlete, you need to hold up to the demands of the sport. You need longevity. You can be a beast and train every day and work harder than everybody, but if you're broken and beaten and bruised and battered by the time you're 20 years old, you're not building a career in your sport. You're just not. So in order to be successful long-term, in order to succeed as an athlete, in order to reach the levels that you want to reach while you compete, you need longevity. And if you're falling into that trap of the no days off mentality, or falling into that trap of the sleep is for the weak mentality, or any of this dumbass shit you hear everywhere, you are not going to last long in the sport. You are not going to last a long time, because you're going to be a beast. You're going to train super hard, and then you're going to break. So what I really want to get across here is that you need to work hard, but you also need to remember that it's about the quality of the work more than about the quantity of the work. If you're working super hard, if you're training every day, if you're doing everything you can, but you're not recovering and you're not sleeping and you're just trying to get in more hours, you're headed down a doomed path. Now, how do we fix it? So, how do we fix this? In order to succeed, you need the skill set, you need the conditioning, you need the work, you need to train hard. But if you want to succeed long-term, you need the recovery, you need the rest, you need the proper nutrition, you need all of these other areas. So what I'm going to get you to do is I want you to think about how you're training right now. And I want you to think about, is this sustainable long-term? Can I keep doing exactly what I'm doing right now and do it for the next 20 years, do it for the next 15 years, however long you need in order to have that dream career that you're talking about in sport. Now, if it is, awesome, you're on the right track. If it's not, things need to change, but instead of waiting until you get hurt, change them now so that they can actually benefit you long term. So the first thing we're going to do in order to help you with that longevity, in order to help show you what you need in order to succeed long term, is we're going to change your mindset around recovery. We're going to change your mindset around those quote unquote days off that you're taking, and you're going to include them as part of your training week. So the reason when I speak to athletes that they hate recovery days or they hate days off is because they look at it as a loss of progress. They look at it as, I'm not training while someone else is. And if I'm not training and someone else is, then that means I'm getting further behind. Now, what I want to switch this for, now what I want to switch in your mind is start understanding that you are not taking a day off or a day away and losing progress. That recovery day is part of the progress. That recovery day is part of the journey. That recovery day is part of your training, and honestly, a crucial part of your training. And so you need to take that same hard work mentality into that and recover properly. Because just like you skipping out on a training session is you slacking, you training when you're supposed to be recovering is you slacking. And if you can think of it that way, now you're not looking at it as a day off. You're not looking at it as a loss of progress. You're looking at it for what it is, part of your week. You're looking at it for what it is, part of your training, part of the benefit that is going to help you succeed long-term as an athlete. So I know that's a little easier said than done, but if you're still skeptical, if you're listening to this now and you're thinking, what are you talking about? A recovery day, a day away, that's not part of training. I want you to look at it like this. If you get in your car right now and you start driving and you never stop for gas, you never change the oil, anything like that, what happens? The car runs out of gas. You hit a point where the car stops running and you're just stuck on the side of the road. Now, if you want to avoid that from happening, if you want to stop that from happening, what do you need to do? You need to stop at the gas station. You need to stop at the gas station, put gas in the car, and then keep going. Everybody looks at stopping at the gas station as part of a road trip. Nobody looks at that as taking away from the road trip or losing progress on the road trip. And if you do, you're nuts, because without doing it, the road trip doesn't happen. So start looking at recovery as the same way. If your training and your athletic career is a road trip, recovery days are you stopping at the gas station. Recovery days are you stopping, putting gas back in the car, filling the tank, and then getting back on the road. And without doing that, your car stops working. Without doing that, you are trapped on the side of the road. Without doing that, you're fucked, to put it lightly. You are not going to last if you're not stopping for gas. That's just how it works. And that's how it works in your training as well. So now, if you can look at recovery as part of the trip instead of taking away from the trip, now you're going to be able to put yourself in a position where you're going to succeed long term. And the reason that you're going to succeed long term is because you're consistently putting fuel back in the tank. And if you're consistently putting fuel back in the tank, you're going to make it longer on the road trip. And if you're making it longer, that allows you to continue to train your skills at a high level. That allows you to continue to build yourself at a high level. And in turn, that allows you to succeed at the highest level possible. So I hope that's changed your mindset around recovery. The next thing I want to put into your head is, instead of just focusing on being the hardest worker, focus on being the hardest and the smartest. So as I said before, hard work, absolutely important. I'm never going to tell you that it's not, despite what some idiot trolls on the internet might think of me. That's not what I'm about here. But you've got to include being smart with that. If you're just out there working hard, and somebody else is out there working hard, but also being conscious of what they're doing, adapting it and improving it to continue to get more out of every training session that they do, they're going to beat you. Long term, they're going to beat you. That's just how that works. Because it's working hard, but it's being efficient. The person who wins isn't the one who just spends the most hours. The person who wins is the one who spends a lot of hours, but also gets more out of the hours that they spent. So how do we start working smarter? What does it mean to start working smarter? It's not just cutting training sessions out. It's not just eliminating anything that's difficult. That's not what I'm here to say. what you need to do if you're trying to train smarter is you need to ask yourself one question. How does this benefit me? How does this benefit me? And the reason that question is so important is because if you're training, if you're working towards a goal in a sport, because remember, that's why you're in the gym. If you're an athlete listening to this, your training goal is not to squat 300 pounds. Your training goal is to be successful in the sport you've chosen. And so if your goal is to be successful in a sport, now that question, how does this benefit me, always comes back to the performance in the sport. So if you're training for a sport and you're asking yourself that question, now you can continually audit what you're doing in the gym and make sure that it's actually benefiting you. Make sure that it's actually giving you what you need in order to succeed in the sport. So if you're in a strength program right now and you are a, let's say, MMA fighter, and your coach is having you max out your back squat to as heavy as you can possibly lift on the bar, ask yourself, what is the benefit of a max back squat to an MMA fighter? In my humble opinion, with 15 years plus of experience in this industry, not very much. And people will say, oh, but it's to test your strength, to make sure you've gotten stronger during the program. You know how you know you've gotten stronger during a program? You look at what you were lifting 4 weeks ago. You look at what you're lifting now. If that number's gone up, you've gotten stronger. You don't need to max out your back squat to test it. That makes sense? So continually asking yourself, how is this benefiting me? And then the next question is to continually ask yourself, what more can I do that will benefit me more? Or what else can I do that will benefit me more? Because if you're consistently looking for improvement, now you're going to consistently try to get more out of your training. And yeah, sometimes you're going to add something in and then you're going to figure out that that wasn't the best decision and you're going to take it back out. Or sometimes you're going to add something in and you're going to go, wow, that sucked, and you're going to take it back out. But don't be afraid to change it, because again, as long as the mentality is, how is this going to benefit my performance in the sport? You're on the right track. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to switch things up. You're going to make decisions that end up being wrong. But as long as that mentality stays top of mind, you're winning. So I hope that this all makes sense. I hope that you got something out of this. If you did, I would love to hear what it was, whether that's a comment if you're here right now on the live stream, or listening back to this on the podcast, the YouTube channel, anywhere else. I would love to know what your takeaways are. Make sure to drop me a message, drop me a comment. All the information on how to do that will be in the show notes below when the podcast releases. In the meantime, if you've gotten value from this show in any way, I would greatly appreciate if you would share this with a friend, share this with a teammate, share this with anybody who needs to hear this message. Our goal with this podcast is to reach athletes worldwide. Our goal with this show is to help you understand what you need to do in order to reach new levels and build a better career for yourself in sport. And the best way we do that is through you sharing, through you talking about the show. And so for all of you who do that on a consistent basis, I appreciate you. But that is all from me for now. I'm looking forward to talking to you all again soon.